I'm getting more done today than I would be able to get done with a team of 10 2 years ago.
You're just locking yourself in to be able to do deep work without the lingering thought of, am I forgetting something or am I blocking someone?
I just get really hardcore religious. Like, it's got to be kind of like on the level of family emergency or more than $1 million coming in that will get me to change for those things. There's a lot of things I can teach. I can't teach attitude. Many of the greatest entrepreneurs are not that smart. We've got an attitude and we've got a drive and a willingness to continually be learning and continually be engaging and not to allow yourself to be satisfied with the way things are right now. Like, that is one of those things that I look for with the people that I get to work with.
Welcome back to Learnings at Scale. I'm Max Thilén. This is the final part of my series with Dave Sifry, entrepreneur, technologist, and founder of Technorati, WarmStart, and many other companies. In this episode, we move beyond the thought experiment and dive into tactical execution. Dave shares exactly what it takes to approach $1 billion in revenue per employee, including the precise tools, daily workflows, automation strategies, and mindset shifts needed to operate at an elite level. We discuss deep work practices, AI-native product design, document-driven development, and why intentionally lean teams can be dangerously effective. If you're building lean, working smart, or just curious how top-tier operators think, this one's for you, so let's dive in. It's funny in this idea of, okay, so the person trying to build this $1 billion one-person company, or maybe it's a better way of saying it is, as you put it, they want to get as close as possible to $1 billion in revenue per employee. I think I could live with that. I don't know about you, but I'm curious from your point of view, what is the tool set that this person needs to have? As you said, you're a product guy, and your answer was very focused on product and user feedback, customer research, and all of the things I would expect from a product guy. What I'm curious about is, having lived your career through that lens and run companies, what are the blind spots of a product guy? Probably a lot of entrepreneurs get into it because they're product people. Thinking about these handful of things that this person needs to focus on learning to build this $1 billion company, what are the biggest blind spots or misses or things that you would go back and tell Dave of yesterday?
So I'm going to leave the human factors out for a second. If I'm just looking at it from an analytic perspective, it's really about taking the product perspective and now applying it to each of the different workflows I've been describing, and asking myself, is this going to be my competitive advantage, or is this just going to be at market standard? And if it's something, for most things, you only need to be really competitive in one of those 5 areas, and you can build a really successful business. In the other 4, you just need to ask yourself, what are the processes necessary to take money into my business? Do I need a salesperson or not? Can I build SOPs and work with people? If I'm going to work with SOPs, can I automate that process and have AIs that are maybe voice controlled, maybe handle the first phase of the process? Or then you ask yourself, well, gosh, could I actually build something in a self-service way? And, what would that look like? Boom, there's one piece. Second, what do I need in order to be able to do go-to-market strategy, right? Like, how do people find out about me? Does this need to be something that is a competitive advantage for me? In some cases, because you're building something relatively commodity, the answer is yes. I am building running shoes. In that case, we have to have an absolutely killer go-to-market strategy and a really powerful brand. So what are the different pieces that I'm going to need, and how can I automate as many of those as possible? What are the tools that are out there? Where can I use video? Where can I use audio? Where can I have GPTs building automated tests so that I can try 50 different ads and put them in front of people instead of just building 2 different ads and putting them in front of people? And how can I measure all of those things? Third is support. So, is this something that we're going to be the best support experience and be our differentiator? Okay. Or is this something that we're just going to need to be good enough to be able to do? And again, make those decisions and either build something amazing or outsource it. There's terrific support options that are out there that you can still use. You've still got to be able to track, what's my NPS score doing? And what's the feedback looking like from people? It may start out as a manual process that you then automate more over time, right? How am I capturing this information so that what I'm doing manually today, I can start to automate tomorrow or next week, right? And asking yourselves for each one of these processes. And I think beyond all of this is, how much am I spending? How much does it cost to get a new customer? Once I get a new customer, how long can I keep them? What's the lifetime value of that customer? And how can I continue to grow and either make that more efficient or grow the number of things that people buy? I think the opportunity for creativity inside of that space, while automating workflows that are there to make sure you can continue to run and scale the business without having to add another human being, is going to be a really powerful formula. And that's in fact what I'm trying to do with the company that I'm building right now. Will we be successful? We'll see. I can tell you right now that with one formal employee and 2 contractors who are helping me build things, I'm getting more done today than I would be able to get done with a team of 10 2 years ago. The fact that I don't need to communicate with a team of 10, I don't have to worry about somebody's sick, somebody's going on vacation, this and that, and that instead I can focus on communicating effectively with just these 2 other people is an incredible force multiplier alone. And then secondly, that each of them can be using AI-enabled tools to be able to make their work more productive. I don't think it's going to eliminate the communication issues as we grow, but if we can keep the team sizes small while being able to build out those core functions and thus increase the amount of revenue per employee and maintain the agility that we have as a small team, feels like a humongous win. And that's the bet I'm making with Warm Start.
It is quite amazing what you have built at Warm Start with just one employee and yourself. I didn't realize that it was just you and one other person. If I had to guess how many people were building it, I would have guessed that it was many more, at least 10. I'm curious. I love the specific actual sort of how people are doing stuff. In your workflow, like you're on this path, you were on this path to get as close as possible to $1 billion in revenue per employee. It's 8 a.m. You've got your cup of coffee, you open your laptop, you sit down to start working. What's the first app you open?
Interestingly, it's Slack.
Okay.
And I do a quick check-in with 2 contractors. I lay out really quickly, hey, here's what I'm working on today. Today, I'm going to be on this podcast with Max. Don't expect me for the next hour and a half because we're going to be talking. Letting people know what my plans are for the day. Each one of them chimes in with, this is what I'm working on. Is anybody blocked on anything? Does anybody need any help? Right now, you say to yourself, but Dave, that sounds just like what you'd be doing with any team of 3 people. Exactly.
You're just locking yourself in to be able to do deep work without the lingering thought of, am I forgetting something or am I blocking someone?
Yeah. Or some days it's meeting days, right? Like, sure. I know I'm going to be having a whole bunch of meetings on one day that I actually live out of my calendar. And so huge efficiency boost for me was when I just started months in advance blocking out 3 days of my week that are just deep work maker days.
And so if you're doing one, go ahead.
I just get really hardcore religious. Like, it's got to be kind of like on the level of family emergency or more than $1 million coming in that will get me to change for those things. I make available the other times via cal.com or Calendly to allow myself to get packed schedules for the days that I'm actually doing meeting related stuff. Again, one of those nice things about small teams, I don't have to have a lot of meetings with my teammates. I can focus on talking to customers or people like you and really focus on those kinds of things when I'm doing meetings.
And so if you're having one of those deep work maker days, you were talking about shipping features earlier. So I would imagine some of the time, at least, you're coding. What tools are you using? Cursor, are you using Windsurf? What are you using?
So they've changed over time. For me, daily workflows, I use Cursor all the time. And generally, stay up to date on the latest versions. Sometimes there's like little issues here and there, but like, yes, I find that, and I use the AI quite a bit. I wouldn't call it vibe coding because it's a bigger code base now, but I've done document driven design. So part of this is I'll go into the AI on a regular basis and say, okay, take a look at this particular set of code, describe for me what it actually does as if you're writing a spec for a junior engineer. And it will write that out and I will put that in a file. Then I'll say, okay, here are the 4 or 5 different major sections. Take all of those and now write me a summary of the architecture and all of the different pieces that we do. And great, does all of that. And then I can provide that as context to Cursor when I am writing new code or fixing something, and it will know, oh, this is the style in which you're writing things, Dave. Here's how you guys write tests. If you're doing pure vibe coding, it's great if you're like writing tic-tac-toe games, or if you're just doing a one-off, like build me a calculator or a to-do list app. The minute that you're trying to get it to be consistent and remain consistent on medium to larger size code bases, you have to do a bit of those organizational pieces and provide them as context to the AI every time that you use it in order to maintain that kind of consistency. As the context windows on these models have gotten better, they've also been able to do more without as much of that architectural help. But I still find that having somebody who has built and designed and thinks through, I ask myself, okay, for this database, how are we going to handle 1,000, 10,000, a million users? I can't just take what the application is saying as gospel. I need to apply critical thinking, especially around scaling architecture or DevOps. Do I think there's a lot here? There's a ton here. Building prototypes, I use v0.dev. I'll just go and say, design me XYZ, or I'll take a screenshot. I'll sometimes write out a sketch, take a picture of it, upload it, and say, design me something that does this. When the user clicks here, they should be taken here, and so on and so forth. And generally, within about 3 to 5 go-arounds with a prompt, I'll get working React code. I know a little bit about the underlying software design. They use things like ShadCN for components. Great. Why shouldn't I build my applications the same way that the prototyping tools build their applications? It's even easier for me to hand off to one of my contractor devs and say, okay, build me this new flow. Just to be clear, I built you a prototype. Here's a loom of me going through the prototype, telling you what it does, what it doesn't do, what I want it to do, make it look like this. All of that gets transcribed because my developers aren't native English speakers. They get transcripts of all of the meetings we have. They can even watch the videos of me speaking. So there's no confusion. They don't have to be coming back to me over and over again and asking for help. I remember when the first dev started, he's like, Dave, what do you use for ticket handling? I'm like, they're like, do you use Jira? Do you use issues? We will come to a point where we're going to need issue tracking and we're going to need to do things in a more organized way. Be really grateful that we don't have to do any of those things. And they were like, because I can talk in natural English, because all of this stuff then gets transcribed, because I can take those transcripts and put them into Claude or ChatGPT and just summarize them. Build me a spec for this, and I can do a quick read and send it off. Like that kind of capability just didn't exist a year ago. And that allows me to be so much more efficient. There will come a time when we're maybe 8 people. You just need to have a higher level of coordination. And therefore, we will use a linear Jira, have issues or things like that on a more coordinated basis. But trust me, like the less tools that you have to use, the better. Forcing devs to use certain tools when they don't really need to use them is just like bureaucracy, right?
Right.
So I know that it will happen, but I try to put that off until my team starts screaming at me saying, Dave, there's too much here. We need to keep it organized. Okay, great. Now let's build some process as we need it versus let's impose a process because this is the way we've always worked.
Yeah, absolutely. Dave, I know we're over time. Do you have time for one follow-up, or do you have to go on to the meeting?
Yeah, I can go for another 10 minutes or so.
That would be okay. Amazing. I love this shit. I could ask you follow-ups until this evening, but I'll try to keep it to
We could
one or
always
two.
get together and have a part 2, of course.
Yeah, I would actually love to do a part 2 because I think there's a ton of great stuff here, and I've barely gotten through half of what I had planned. It's really interesting hearing you talk about your workflow because I am the opposite, right? I have zero training as an engineer. The thing that I have as a dirty vibe coder in my corner is that I learned how to code in Python before AI, right? Certainly not engineering. I was working on a trading desk. And so, process optimization or automation and doing derivatives math and so forth. But at least I have some concept of how computer programming languages work and what a repo is. And, I knew what Git was before I got started, which these things are trivial to an engineer, but if you're vibe coding, they're quite helpful. I have no knowledge in any other coding languages, really. I could look at some JavaScript and maybe figure out what it's doing, but it would take me a really long time. I've written thousands of lines of code over the last months and plenty of workable MVPs, lots of meaningful workflow optimization stuff, driving chained prompts and other things, and even process automation. We have a project manager who is spending a ton of time creating Asana tasks that could have just been a button click and writing simple Python scripts that make it so that you click a button here in Airtable, task gets created. When that task is completed, the next thing in the process, in the workflow sort of gets, and things like this, right? None of this is complicated to an engineer, but now I can just do that by hitting Option Space and talking through Super Whisper. The biggest standout learning has been that it's all about the documentation. If you have 4 hours to chop down a tree, spend 3 hours sharpening the axe. And so now, if I'm doing one of these things, I very rarely start in Cursor. Actually, where I start is I'll have a conversation with 4.0, where I'll tell it, go back and forth. We're going to suss out an idea until I have defined what I want. And then I'll say, okay, now write me a prompt for a reasoning model structured in this certain way that I can give to O1 Pro Mode to go do deep research on. And maybe this process takes me 4 hours, or maybe it takes 2 hours, but I'm investing time in this. And then I get a document and I'll open up a repo or a Cursor, create a repo, and then I'll start with my sort of project context file. And then I have some prompts where I'll tell Cursor, I want to continually update a project context file as we add features, add them here. That's kind of what I'm doing to make it work. But obviously, sometimes it falls apart. These project context files, all of a sudden, they're 3,000 lines, and then it starts falling apart. What I'm getting at is for the advanced coder who is not just sitting there and barking features in, but you're actually trying to be intentional about this. And my end goal is not to ship products myself. My end goal is to build something to a point that I can send it to a dev or an engineer and say, make this work and have that process not be a total cluster. In other words, there's enough structure and logic that they can pick it up and say, oh, I understand what you were trying to do. What is your advice? How would you go about this with that sort of problem statement and context?
First of all, Max, I think you're doing a lot of things right. Like, so much of this is what is the outcome that you have in mind, right? What is it? Stephen Covey used to say, start with the outcome that you have in mind. You're not writing long-term production code that you're going to be expecting to scale over a number of years. I would argue the best companies might have a good architecture, but they know they're going to be rewriting their code base every 6 to 12 months.
Right.
You are very much in this place where your outcome is to effectively communicate in both a visual and process way to the customer to make sure that what we're prototyping for them is the thing that they want. I want to be able to also have it be useful to my developer who will be building something that probably isn't going to be built for 24 to 36 months. It's going to be built for 6 to 12 months. And then, requirements will change, needs will change, so on. So clarity of thinking is first and foremost. Really understanding what is it I'm trying to do? Who am I trying to do it for? What is the outcome that I want to make sure that they actually get to? These are the pieces that you're actually having that conversation with ChatGPT and coming up with a piece of documentation. So that's so powerful and useful. Then breaking that down into, okay, what are the different key pieces that we need to build here? The fact that you have written code before is a really positive piece to this, because you understand that so much of this starts with, what am I trying to achieve? Then what is the data model that we need to have in order to build this? Am I building this for one user? Or am I building this for hundreds of users who are each going to need to now be able to have a username and a password and login? Or am I building this for multiple organizations? So now I'm going to have users who are parts of teams, and those teams are parts of organizations. If you don't think about that stuff from the start, the AI isn't necessarily going to think about those things for you. Getting it clear right from the beginning, who am I building this for? What are their needs? What's the important problem I'm trying to solve? Who's actually going to be using this? How would they actually be using this? Second, then you go and you test it quickly with the people who are going to be the actual end user or the customer. Maybe it's you, maybe it's your internal process, like maybe it's your project manager. You're building software for your project manager to be able to do things so that they don't have to be building things manually in Asana. That's actually a totally reasonable approach. And you're getting feedback from them and incorporating that as you move forward. So always be constantly learning so that you can be, number one, building the right tools for the right people. But then secondly, you're also like, what are the new tools that are out there that I can start to use? And how do I make sure that I'm leaving a certain amount of time in my day? And this, by the way, is, I think, why so many people are going to have a hard time, because they're already so busy doing the work that they've been assigned. And now that companies are laying people off, they've got even more work to do. If you don't dedicate as a leader the 20 to 30% of time necessary in order to allow your team to be doing that kind of experimentation and encouraging that, well, you're kind of robbing Peter to pay Paul. And I would say you're incurring a form of technical debt that we don't often talk about, but it's, you got to make sure that you're allowing not only you to sharpen the saw and make sure that the thing you're building is right, but that your people have time to sharpen their saws.
Love that. You got my gears turning, Dave.
Getting the right people with the right attitude. I'll tell you, there's a lot of things I can teach. I can't teach attitude. I don't know how, and like that to me is the single biggest determinant of whether somebody is going to be long-term successful. You don't have to have 150 IQ to be successful. Many of the greatest entrepreneurs, we're not that smart, but like, we've got an attitude and we've got a drive and, a willingness to continually be learning and continually be engaging, and not to allow yourself to be satisfied with the way things are right now. Like, that is one of those things that I look for with the people that I get to work with. When you build a culture like that, it's powerful. You get one person who doesn't fit there and it can cause disruption to a whole team. So, like, again, smaller teams, but everybody with that same kind of attitude, giving them a ton of empowerment and holding them accountable to the results. Watch out, the sky's the limit.
What is the quote? Move from failure to failure with zero loss of enthusiasm kind of thing. Well, Dave, I know we're over the overtime, so I'll let you go, but this has been awesome. I really enjoyed talking to you, and I hope we can do a round two, because like I said, I still have a lot left that I want to talk to you about.
It's been a real pleasure for me as well, Max. Looking forward to our next conversation.
Thanks, Dave. Have a great day. See ya. That wraps up part 3 with Dave Sifry and concludes this special 3-part series. If you're building a company in the AI native era, or just striving to work smarter, faster, and leaner, Dave's insights offer a tactical masterclass on operating with clarity, agility, and purpose. Huge thanks to Dave for joining me, and if you've enjoyed this conversation, smash that subscribe button, hit like, and let me know in the comments if you'd like us to do a round 2. Catch you on the next episode of Learning to Scale.